I think globally we're 110-ish people now, so growing pretty rapidly, and the US is just kind of pumping right now, which is great. One thing that we've done in the US that we don't do across the rest of the regions is actually bringing in time tracking from day one and really focusing on utilization and being able to really pinpoint what that profitability level looks like. I think globally we're, I want to say 10 million US globally, 20 million Aussie. So for us, it's just like, it's a proven model. So why would we change it, right? We didn't think we'd hit 1 million so soon. I would love to hit 3 by the end of next year. I think that's reaching a little bit. It's very incredibly optimistic. But it could be doable if we grow at a very similar rate or a faster rate than what we are now.
Sophie Brannon, thank you so much for coming on the Agency Growth Club. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Josh. Thanks so much for having me. How are you doing?
Fantastic. I'm super, super excited to dive into this. I've had Harry on the podcast before. I've met Anthony loads of times down at Brighton SEO. So I thought it'd be great to have you on the podcast as well. So first of all, for anybody, let's just say, who doesn't really know or has been living under a rock and doesn't know who StudioHawk are, let's just do a deep dive into kind of like where StudioHawk started and like the fact that it's in the UK now, and now more recently you're heading up the US side.
Yeah, so StudioHawk, we are a global SEO specialist agency. So all we do is the SEO side of things and digital PR, which is technically part of SEO anyway. We were founded by Harry back about 10 years ago now. I think he was 17 when he started the agency, which is just incredible. And he's got just an awesome story as well. And we were founded in Melbourne, Australia, opened up an office in Sydney. 2019, Anthony, who was, I think, the second or third hire in Australia, moved over to the UK and opened up the London office, which is now, I think, 15 odd people, which is awesome. And then as of September last year, we launched out in the US. And yeah, we're based out in Atlanta. I think globally we're 110-ish people now. So growing pretty rapidly, and the US is just kind of pumping right now, which is great.
That's awesome. What's quite cool for us is we're now clients of all three of the ones. So it's pretty sick. We've helped build the teams. But okay, so you guys opened up the office in February. How long before that was it actually in talks? Like how much preparation had to go into it?
I mean, I think the idea of opening up in the US has always been something that, especially Harry's always wanted to do. It was just about timing it right and making sure that, you know, we were established enough that we could kind of hold our own in the US as well. In terms of like how long this kind of process took from getting it started to opening the office, we landed our first client in the US in September. And they're actually still on board with us. We've got a bunch of the clients who started with us back then. Still on, which is amazing. But yeah, I mean, definitely in talks for at least kind of like 3-4 years, and then decided, you know, let's do it kind of as of 2024, 2025.
Awesome. I can't remember if it was like my first client call with Harry or if it was on a podcast way back. But back then it was just after COVID, I think. He was doing his rounds around the US, just going to every single city to like meet up with like all his like ICP and stuff. And I remember that sticking with me way back then. And he was just going on about how important it is to get like face to face, and like it's paid off now, what, 4 years later?
Absolutely. No, 100%. And it's something we're finding as well, just like in the US. And I think that's very different in the US versus the rest of the world. Like the face-to-face and the personal relationships hold so much more value here. Like if you don't have boots on the ground in the US, then it's probably not going to be as successful. So yeah, I'd really just say like personal recommendations and just being face-to-face with people is just so valuable.
Absolutely. And that's, I mean, we've talked about it before. I'm trying to get my O1 visa at the minute so I can move to where I am now, Austin. But again, I just feel like when I came to Austin the first time 3 years ago, I think we had one client, Propellic, and went out for food with him, and then whilst we were at the thing, he was like, "Oh, have you met X, Y, and Z?" I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
He just picks up his phone, he starts texting, and now we've got like plenty of clients here. And I just feel like that's what America is. You do one good job for one client, and it just keeps on rolling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's how we found, even just the growth we've seen so far, a lot of that has been client referrals and just partners referrals and us just knowing people in Atlanta, which when we first got here, we didn't know anyone. So it's been great that people are that receptive to being like, hey, have you met this person? And just giving recommendations of like, use this attorney, or this is my business tax person, and like all of these kind of connections of, here's a mastermind group that we think would be awesome if you were there, and just connecting us with people. So that's been so, so valuable for us.
Absolutely. And I feel like, again, us coming back from like UK and Europe, the one thing I've noticed about America is nearly every state is just like its own country. Like it's just crazy. But okay, cool. So most people, when they think, right, we're going to move an established business over to the US, we want to get boots in the ground. Normally, those locations that kind of get talked about are, your New York cities, which have disgusting taxes. So does LA. But you guys chose to pick up an office in Atlanta, which I kind of haven't really heard of any other SEO agencies like being around that city. What was kind of the idea of picking out Atlanta? And do you guys think that's paid off for you?
For sure. So people ask us this all the time because everyone's just as baffled. They're like, why Atlanta? It doesn't make any sense. But actually, it makes so much sense for us. So it's almost like the start of a joke, but a Brit and an Aussie starts looking around for a office somewhere in the US. We did the exact same thing as what you said. We went to New York and we were looking there and we were like, well, there's a lot of other SEO agencies there and just marketing agencies there. So it's obviously got a lot of potential, which is great, but the taxes are crazy. There's talent, like requirements are crazy in terms of like salary expectations and things like that. Office and things like that are also so expensive because we are a full-time in-office company as well. We were just like, this is awesome, but we're probably going to hit a ceiling pretty quickly when we get to maybe like 5 to 10 staff. And then it's going to be so hard to grow from here. And then we was like, right, we'll try LA. Got to LA, didn't love LA. Harry has very big feelings about LA in particular, but very similar thing, like the taxes, the cost of living, like the staff, all of that kind of stuff didn't really make sense either. And we kind of were like, oh, where do we go? Like, where do we go from here? And we've heard things about like Austin. I know there's a lot of people there. Denver is another place where there's lots of people. And just a friend of a friend turned around to Harry and said, have you tried somewhere in the South? Maybe something like Charlotte. So we flew down to Charlotte, and Charlotte's awesome. It's a really cool place, but just a little bit too small and kind of a little bit restrictive almost in terms of like the business opportunities there. We were like, right, we actually just don't know where to go from here. And then people in Charlotte were like, have you checked out Atlanta? And even when I spoke to my parents, being like, hey, like, I'm going to be spending the majority of my time out in Atlanta, and they were like, what? Why Atlanta? Like, we've heard awful things about it and things like that. There's all of this gang crime and all of these things. And I was just like, oh, like, what have we done? And then I turned up to Atlanta after we basically were pretty set on coming here. And I was like, you know what, this city's incredible. It's growing at such a rapid rate. It's technically the capital of the South is kind of what it's spoken about. We've got great hiring opportunities because we've got the likes of Georgia Tech, Emory as a business school, Georgia State as awesome kind of colleges here, even for just bringing in, juniors, because we do like to train up juniors from the ground up. The airport is the busiest airport in the world, which is very fun when there's a government shutdown for sure. But that's great because it means I can come in directly from the UK. It's only one stop for Harry, normally in Texas or LA, to come in from Australia and any of the team and things like that. And it's just like the area as well, it really does remind us of Prahran in Melbourne, which is where our Melbourne office is, and Shoreditch in London, which is where our London office is. So even just culturally, it just seemed like the right fit. So everything just started ticking all of these boxes for us. And since we've come here, we've already seen how much the city is growing itself. But just with all the connections we've made, everyone's super friendly. Like Southern hospitality is definitely a thing. And yeah, it's really has paid off. We've got some awesome talent coming through, and like the business is booming.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, Atlanta's on my bucket list. I need to make my way down. But I love that you mentioned the talent density because again, you would think that that's what a lot of people would look at is, what are the salaries like? How
Yeah.
competitive is it? And you mentioned like New York, like so we're using Salary Guides data at the minute to do like a big resource for SEO for hire. And like if you look at the salaries in New York or even like Tampa, Florida, it is
Hmm.
like 100K, if not 150K above nearly every other place in the US.
Yeah.
It just kind of gets like crazy as well because you're looking at it and it's like, again, we could go into like the difference of like UK salaries as well, but like it's insane. But no, I love that you guys chose Atlanta and it's all working out. And okay, cool. So you guys have basically been running for more or less about a year, and you
Hmm.
have already crossed 1 million ARR, which is like insane growth. So first of all, congratulations on that. Second of all, everybody would probably look at that seven-figure number, looks lovely, but I'm sure there was things that kind of broke along the way, or maybe necessarily didn't break, but things that you really had to put in place. What were those things that you had to put in place to make sure that this like hitting that million ARR, the whole business didn't just like flop?
Yeah, great question. So there's a couple of things where I have to admit I'm incredibly in a very, very fortunate position and very lucky because I'm bringing StudioHawk, which is an already established brand. We're the biggest SEO agency in Australia, out to the US, which is the biggest market in the world. And I have the Australian Big Brother team to lean back on. A lot of the mistakes have already been made over the last 10 years and already been learnt from. So I've already got a lot of the processes and a lot of the structure and things like that. So that I think differentiates us a little bit in terms of where we're starting because while we are a startup and we're running like a startup and we are a completely separate entity, there is a lot of learnings I can take from the other offices globally. That being said, I think we definitely started hitting that kind of the normal growing pains that you get within a small business and kind of startup business in particular, where talent wise, as I say, we typically hire juniors and bring juniors in from the ground up. We were getting clients that needed a senior voice and things like that. So I'm still working directly on client campaigns while trying to get the juniors and the mids up to that kind of level. So I think that's one thing. Don't think we was expecting to grow as quickly as we did as well. So we started hiring reactively rather than proactively. So that's something that we're looking at for 2026 is like looking at that pipeline, looking at the trends, seeing how we can make sure we're hiring more proactively so we don't have that kind of bubble. And then I think just getting very excited about when our pipeline did really start taking off and we, both myself and Harry spent a lot of time, especially September, October, talking at a lot of events in the US and all across the globe as well. So we started seeing this big surge of kind of interest, and that meant that was all well and good, but proposals started going out later than what they should have done. So we possibly were starting to lose business there. As we were bringing on new business, we were bringing on new business very quickly. And that actually then ended up not drowning the team because they had capacity, but there was a lot of new stuff to start doing, like month one deliverables starting all to come out all at once. And then we ended up, honestly, with like a little bit of a churn issue because of that, because the level of service that we're used to giving our clients wasn't quite hitting that level because there was so much going on and there wasn't enough team and it was too much coming in all at once. And that generally is just kind of growing pains and kind of learning also how the US market operates. So, for example, September is typically end of fiscal year for a lot of businesses. So I was expecting a really solid, big September. But actually, that means that everyone's re-looking at their budgets, and chances are they're not going to be doing much until the new year. And then we come to November 15th, I think is the usual cutoff. And that's, we've got Thanksgiving, then we've got the Christmas holidays and things like that. So now it's just dead. There's nothing going on in the US right now. It's we'll talk about this in the new year and we'll sign off on this in the new year. It'll be January 1st start. So I think it's just been, getting to know the US market and how different it really is from like the rest of the world. And then just some of those typical growing pains too, and just trying to get around some of those. But it just leans into building out more structure, more processes, and just being proactive rather than reactive, I think, a lot of the time.
Awesome. I love that. And a point on that I'd really like to go into because like SEO for hire, we've been running for about 4 years, and every single client that comes to us, which is not that many, that are proactive with hiring. They're like, look, we're hoping that we're going to close X, Y, and Z. It'll mean that we'll need X, Y, and Z in like 3 months' time. Like they're the agencies now that when we seen 4 years ago are like absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times we'll get on a call and I always ask like the same question, like, when do you need this hire for? And it's like, yesterday, right? So
Yeah.
it's like completely reactive. So you're talking about that you're now planning out proactive hiring. What kind of things yeah, just for any agency owner that's like thinking about that. Okay, what happens in the next year? What kind of things are you looking at? Yeah, just take us through that.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, I mean, fundamentally, it's getting a senior in, which you've absolutely helped us with. So we're really excited for that to start in Q1, and just kind of building out more of a hierarchy. Because as I say, we're a small business in the US that we will be 7 people as of January because we've got a new junior starting with us as well, and just starting to build out more of that structure and more of that hierarchy, and just seeing where you need some of that fit. I also think as well it's important to realize that not every hire that you make every time is going to last forever and going to be part of that journey with you, and you kind of have to think about that and think about the people you're hiring, and not everyone's also going to be an A-star player, and it's okay to have B players as well because they will typically support the A-star players too. So I think a lot of what I'm looking at now is, what does that hierarchy look like? Who do I think is going to be coming along this journey with us? Who's going to be supporting us along the way? Where do I see the future of StudioHawk US as well, and like what that structure could possibly look like? And it's a little bit of a trap I fall into myself, is I'm always 5 years ahead. I'm like, oh, look at this, when we were 100 people, whatever that looks like, when we're bigger than Australia, and like really trying to like look at all this fun stuff, but trying to think ahead while also realizing what's right in front of us as well. So I think it's more of just having that balance, but getting that structure right, I think, first and foremost.
Quick pause. If you're getting value from this conversation about scaling agencies and hiring top talent, I want to share something that might help you. Are you struggling to find A players for your digital marketing agency? We've got you covered. For SEO experts who turn rankings into revenue, head to SEOforhire.co. For paid media specialists who boost your bottom line, check out paidmediajobs.com. And if you're looking for foot rubs, you're definitely in the wrong podcast. All right, let's jump back into the episode.
I love that. And I feel like StudioHawk have always had like a great testament to that. Again, I remember one of the first calls with Harry, we were like, one thing that we try and do is like sell the role or sell like the job a lot more than like a normal generic job description. And I still to this day talk about this all the time. Harry had a like 20-page culture handbook. He had a progression map. He had like everything you could look at from a employer value proposition, like just completely nailed. And again, similar with you guys, you jumped on the call with our candidate the other day to talk about progression plans and selling the vision and all of that, where there's so many companies that just think, okay, right, this is the job that we need. We think we might need it. Again, so many times we'll jump on a discovery call and like the role that they think they need by the end of the call, just after like 10 different questions, is completely changed. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's so important to like sell the vision and like get somebody bought into like where that company's going.
Oh, absolutely. And I think as well, like for us, and you've heard this, I'm sure, from Harry and from Anthony and from everyone, we have an ideal type of person that we want to hire, like our little wholesome nerd value proposition that we have. And that's been kind of molded from people we've hired before across all of the regions, where we're like, okay, these are the people that we want within the business, our wholesome nerds. And then we kind of model who we hire around that. And it means that, we're getting the right kind of people that align with our core values, which are more likely to be along with that journey with us. And even if they're not, they're just typically not going to cause us problems. And that's where we've, rushed into hiring before, hired the wrong kind of people, and then that's caused us more issues along the way. So really kind of nailing down that kind of archetype of person that you do want to bring into the business, and then matching that up with what experience they have and who they've worked with before, and kind of building that around that archetype, I think. And that's been such a model of success for us that we've rolled across all of our regions.
Awesome. And okay, so if you go back to scaling fast is great, but if there's no cash or the cash is all getting burnt, then you don't really have a big runway. What's your best advice for cash flow runway, and kind of what way did you get that all set up for StudioHawk US?
Yeah, and again, I think this is where I'm very lucky, where I've got the Australian team to lean back on. If there was ever any kind of like cash flow issues and things like that, very, very fortunate in that sense. However, it's just been about being really well structured, I think, and making sure that we are consistently looking at our profitability by person, by client, and really tracking that. One thing that we've done in the US that we don't do across the rest of the regions is actually bringing in time tracking from day one and really focusing on utilization and being able to really pinpoint what that profitability level looks like. Because like I say, when we're hiring ahead of time, we don't have that cash flow necessarily in the business in terms of like clients coming through, in order to give them as much work as what they necessarily need. So it's about making sure we're modeling that correctly, making sure we're forecasting right, and then just making sure that there is always something there for them. Because what I would never ever want to do, and StudioHawk has never done this, is bring people in, make them work on one big client, and then if that one big client leaves, then we don't need that member of staff. That's an awful way to operate. But unfortunately, there are a lot of agencies out there that is their model because they are growing very quickly. So I think for us, taking a step back, it's modeling, it's the forecasting, but then the type of business that we're bringing in is not just relying on one big corporate client or something like that. We distribute everything. And even with the US, like we had opportunities to work with massive clients really early on that we had to then turn down and say, look, we actually don't want to work with you right now. Come back to us in 5 or in 2 years or a year or whatever that kind of looks like. And then we'll have the capacity to be able to like work on your campaign without having to hire 10 people that if you then decide you don't want to work with us in 6 months, we then have to get rid of. So making sure that there's not like that one kind of main client that is the cash flow of the business,
Awesome. And okay, so we already kind of touched on the difference with the US market. So I know that you've worked for a US company before, but predominantly most of your career is UK, right? So what are you finding like the biggest differences? Are you seeing that they're like faster to sign? Are you seeing that there's like certain metrics that they're more obsessed over? What are you seeing?
There's actually quite a lot of differences, to be honest, and same with Australia, because I work quite a bit in Australia as well. So in the US, typically there's a lot more legal procedure, and when it comes to like invoicing, things like that you have to go through like AP departments and all of that in order to kind of get everything signed off. So I think that's like the one thing, like expect that there's going to be a lot more kind of legal oversight, lots more back and forth, redlining documents. I'm lucky I've watched a lot of Suits, to be honest, because I've spent an incredible amount of time reading through contracts. I think half my day yesterday was reading through and redlining contracts, which is crazy. So that's one thing. I think in terms of expectation, that's also very interesting. So we spoke a little bit earlier about the value of that in-person connection. And a lot of US businesses love face-to-face meetings and really kind of digging into things. And that's almost like an expectation of you will at some point meet face to face, whether that's for a dinner or an in-person meeting or whatever that looks like. In the UK in particular, oh my God, it's so hard since COVID to get anyone to come off of the Zoom meeting or a Google Meet. No one wants to meet in person anymore. Like, it's incredible to me. And then in terms of like metrics and things, it's pretty similar across the board. Everyone's obviously looking at ROI, looking at like revenue. I think the big thing in the US is that a lot of businesses have a lot more money to spend. Obviously, it's a bigger market and things like that. They typically are happier to throw money at a campaign and prove it out as opposed to be 2-3 months in and be like, oh, I've not seen any ROI. And then I think finally, kind of going back to that expectation, one of the big things that I found really interesting was in the UK, if you go a bit above and beyond, like you respond to an email on a weekend or after hours or whatever that looks like, you're like almost praised for it. It's like, wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much for doing that. And in the US, that's an expectation. It's like, well, they will respond back to you. Like my favorite thing at the moment is everyone talking about the holiday period. And in the UK, Europe and Australia, it's like, having a shutdown, this is what's happening. You can contact me in the new year. And in the US, it's, oh, okay, we're shut for maybe a couple of days, or even if they are doing a full shutdown, it's like, but you can still contact me. Here's my mobile number. Like, it is just such a different culture here. It's incredible.
Yeah, I love that. I had a very similar experience with the redlining of contracts when we signed Sage as a client like 3 or 4 years ago. And our contract, I'm not a fan of contracts. I know they're important, but mine, like you've seen ours, it's 2 pages. It's super, super simple. And it's just meant to be like, you can see it, scan it, sign it. And Sage rewrote redlined everything and gave us back like it must have been an 80-page contract. And like I felt insulted by it. I was like, this is ridiculous. And then I like kind of came to my senses. I was like, right, like this is a great client to bring on and stuff. But yeah, I've experienced that as well.
Yeah, it's huge. I love it when people try and sneak clauses in as well, and I'm just like, caught you. Like, no, it's incredible.
Awesome. And okay, so again, Harry is big on this about how StudioHawk is solely an SEO agency.
Mm-hmm.
So again, like a lot of the masterminds I go to, and a lot where there's like a lot of digital agency owners, like one of the biggest ways people talk about like increasing revenue is when you've got a great client, expand the services. And you guys are big on not doing that. So yeah, let's jump into that.
Yeah, so there's actually two things that have come out of this, especially in the US market. So the first thing is we will always only ever be an SEO specialist agency. And we did toy with the idea very recently of like, oh, maybe we do need to bring in some form of paid media. Maybe we set it up as a kind of partner sister business or something, but it's still owned by StudioHawk, and figuring that out. And we reached out to our clients. We were like, if we were ever to offer an additional service, like, what is it you would want? And everyone was just like, just better reporting. Like, just please make sure that our reports are really solid. And we don't want you to do PPC. You are awesome as SEO specialists. And it's always been such a big USP for us, simply because there's not many of us out there, I think, more than anything. There's a lot of full service agencies, and I've seen this a lot in the US, the UK, and everything. I think the UK has more SEO specialists, to be fair. But in the US especially, everyone's full service, more or less, which typically means that they're not doing everything very well. And when we come in as the SEO specialists and we're talking about more stuff, especially around this era of AI search, where that specialist opinion is so much more valued than maybe it ever was before, we're kind of really riding that wave right now. That's just been a big winner for us, and it is one of the main things and one of the main reasons why a lot of our clients sign for us. Now, the other side of that is, especially in the US, a lot of the advice we get given is, if you want to grow, you need to niche down, which sounds like very controversial, very kind of backwards. But when I say niche down, it's very much into specific industries. So there's a whole bunch out here right now. I think Hennessy Digital, for example, Jason, is specific to law. And then I think there's, I want to say maybe Brain Labs or something like that. Like, I think they're automotive, and there's like a few different kind of niches that everyone kind of niches down into. And at StudioHawk, we've never niched down into anything like that. And again, even though we're getting the advice of like, maybe that's what we need to be doing, I just don't see that being the future of StudioHawk. What I possibly see, especially in the US, happening is that we build out, niche teams that then work on specifically finance, specifically automotive, and whatever that looks like. So then we're still getting the value prop of, we've worked with X amount of businesses in these niches, but why would we turn away business when it's been so successful for us in all of the other regions? I think globally I want to say 10 million US globally, I think 20 million Aussie. So for us, it's just like, it's a proven model. So why would we change it, right?
I love that. And okay, so if we just go back to, right, so first year you passed 1 million ARR, which is like crazy. I'm going to assume that wasn't from word of mouth. So was it, personal brand? I've seen you've been going to a lot of speaking events. I've seen you've been going to a lot of events with Harry as well. Was it the StudioHawk reputation already built, or what was it that basically got all those leads in?
So my favorite thing about this question is when we got to the US, we were obviously, globally, we're 100 people, and, look how massive we are and things like that. And they were like, so how big's your US team? And it would just be me and Harry standing there looking at each other like, us, like literally us, and that's it, especially right in the early days. So that was really interesting to experience. People don't care what you do outside of the US. It's all about what you do here. So in terms of where we've got a lot of our revenue from, we have been able to leverage the brand to some degree, but not as much as I think we were hoping to do. I think we were very much going to jump on the calls and be like, we're 110 people, and hope people didn't ask any more questions past that point, but that didn't happen. So a lot of it's really been, like what we were talking about earlier, personal connections, building partners and partnerships, which we do globally as well, with some other specialist agencies like web dev agencies, CRO, UX agencies, PPC agencies, and then we'll refer business to them and they refer business to us, and it works like really, really well. And then just going to these events, networking as much as possible, having our clients refer us to other people they know, and then just getting to know people face to face, and typically just having those conversations, hearing Harry's story, just talking about how like StudioHawk even started has been such a winner for us. So it really has just been like getting in the room with as many people as possible, and that's going to be a big strategy for 2026. Is the team will be in the office doing all of the deliverables and doing all of that, and hopefully you'll see me on stages and basically every event that you see in the US over the next year.
Awesome. I love that. And I feel like you do quite a lot of events. So I'm excited to see how many more you do next year. And okay, so if we kind of go into, you were basically taken from, well, taken sounds really bad. You were in the UK, you went over, started StudioHawk US, and you're now managing a very like fast scaling startup. And again, I've seen you at events. I've always seen people talk really highly of you as well. Like Nick Eubanks sings your praises anytime that you're mentioned. So how do you manage your energy going from not being a co-founder before to now going and building a very fast scaling startup?
Yeah, I think I'm just so excited by the opportunity here that I just don't really think about like where my energy is going or anything, because I'm just so pumped to even have the opportunity to be able to be here and to do this and to grow this, because I think it's got so much potential, and to have such an opportunity to start with of, we've got the brand, the business is already there, the processes, the structure. It's basically just bringing it out to a new market, albeit the biggest and one of the most difficult markets, but one of the best markets out here to do it. It's going to be interesting next year for sure, because I actually split my time between the UK and the US. So it's going to be me being in the US for 2 weeks, being home for 2 weeks, in the US for 2 weeks, home for 2 weeks, and just constant back and forth travel, which I think is going to be pretty hard on the body. And jet lag will be part of my personality. So I'll let you know how that goes by the end of next year. But honestly, I'm just so excited for this, that it's just kind of go, 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 grow, grow, grow. And then I'm just learning so much as well. Like, as you say, I've never co-founded a business before. I have my own kind of small limited company for like freelancing and contracting in the UK. But even just learning like how businesses are supposed to operate properly when you're growing, all of the business tax laws, all of the like company setups and how that's all different in the US and how everything operates differently here. It's just been super exciting, because I've been doing SEO for 10 years. And while the SEO industry is changing very rapidly with AI search, the fundamentals are still the same. It's the technical, it's the content, it's the links, right? And I've been doing this for so long across so many industries that I really kind of wanted my next step to be, let's learn something new, do something different while also doing the same thing. So yeah, it's just been very much like go, go, go. But definitely next year, making sure I'm like protecting that kind of mental health side of things, and making sure I'm just being conscious of the fact I'm going to be here, there, and everywhere quite a lot, and managing that on a personal and professional level.
And I'd say, again, working so close with Harry is probably like getting an MBA, like just being able to be a sponge around him, because he's done it for the last like 10 years, understanding like, okay, if this breaks, we're not all going to die. This just needs to be fixed. So I'd say being around him all the time has been like unbelievable mentorship.
Yeah, 100%. And he will never cease to amaze me of being, I think he's 28 now, 28 years old, 27, maybe I've aged him slightly. And for him to have as much knowledge and be as open about that knowledge as he is, I learn something from him every single day. So yeah, it's absolutely incredible to have him as a mentor and a friend as well. I've known him for 5-6 years now, I think. And just seeing how he's progressed and how he's grown personally too, it's just incredible. And now hoping to help him and StudioHawk with this new venture and kind of help grow that with him too. It's just exciting.
And I feel like we could talk about Harry for a while, but just the fact that he used to be homeless, like turned his whole life around, and it's just, he's insane. But yeah, Sophie, okay, so you've done 1 million ARR this year, right? Which, like I've said 3 times now, is insane for your first year of business. What's the plan for year 2?
honestly, grow, and see where the cap hits, see where the ceiling is, to be honest. A big focus of next year is, just making sure that we're bringing everything in, but that level of service doesn't drop. And that's something I'm going to be very focused on is, not just retention, but also how can we make our processes better? How can we make our delivery better? Especially as technology is changing so much. Like, how can we integrate more AI so our clients get more from us sooner and results come quicker and things like that. In terms of like numerical values, like it really is just wherever the ceiling hits by the end of next year, to be honest. We didn't think we'd hit 1 million so soon. I would love to hit 3 by the end of next year. I think that's reaching a little bit. It's very incredibly optimistic. But it could be doable if we grow at a very similar rate or a faster rate than what we are now. So definitely a crazy time for us.
I love that. I've got a good friend of mine, and he's actually an agency owner here in Austin, but he's big on setting your goals at like a stupid amount of level because you're going to hit it on the way anyway. So you may as well like aim for the moon. Okay, last question for you, Sophie. So again, you've been running this for about a year. If you could go back to Sophie before you started with StudioHawk properly, what's like the one thing that you wish you could have told yourself that you wouldn't, go through?
I think it's the fact I said no to this opportunity to start with. Like, Harry had to twist my arm to do this, which is crazy. But it's mostly because I've got my life set up in the UK and things like that. And I was like, I've got to go to the US all the time. I was like, I don't know if it's going to be for me. I think if I'd have jumped on this sooner, we could have done this even quicker. But to be honest, I think we needed that little bit of a gap to have that learning curve and to go through and make sure things were set up correctly and things like that. So no regrets really, nothing I'd change. It's all very much a continual learning cycle for me, for sure.
I love that. Well, look, Sophie, thank you so much for coming on. If people want to follow along this crazy journey, where can they find you?
I believe Harry's recording like a whole bunch of YouTube videos and like following the journey. They are typically a little bit behind. I think maybe the last YouTube video is capped at like maybe 20k MRR or ARR, sorry. So that's somewhere, but follow us on LinkedIn, connect with me, connect with Harry, and yeah, just come along for the ride. We're publishing loads out on our socials right now. Again, a big thing for 26. So yeah, keep a close eye.
Thanks for sticking around to the end, and I really hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're an agency owner that is wanting to scale and wants to continue bringing your business to new heights and doesn't want to put everything on pause for hiring and finding the best talent that's out there in SEO and paid media, well, that's something I can help with. I own a recruitment company that has specialized in both the SEO and paid media sector, and we work with 100+ businesses. So I'm going to leave 2 links below. There's no big pitch here, but if you want to talk over strategy and hiring and how myself and my team can find you the best A-player talent in both the SEO and paid media sector, then please book in, and I look forward to talking to you. Thank you.